The first beam of light wasn't beautiful, it was blinding. It carved through the clouds over Geneva like a divine blade, slicing the UN Orbital Council Tower in half. The building collapsed in eerie silence before the shockwave reached the ground. By then, half the city was already on fire. Commander Elena Ruiz didn't flinch. She had expected something like this for years, just not this soon. She yanked a wounded corporal up by his vest and shoved him into the shuttle bay. "Move. Priority evac for wounded. You stay, you die. You understand me, Corporal?" The kid nodded, blood streaming down his cheek, eyes wide with the shock of watching the sky fall. Elena slammed the bay door closed and turned back toward the skyline, where more lights stabbed down from orbit. Rome, Sao Paulo, Johannesburg, burning. In her earpiece, static crackled. "All channels. EDF High Command is compromised. Repeat, Geneva Command is." The line cut. Earth's Central Command had gone dark. She ran. Through ruined corridors and smoking concrete, past digital billboards flickering with evacuation codes. Her boots pounded on blood-slick floors. She wasn't just surviving. She had a mission. EDF Command Omega Protocol. Regroup, resist, retaliate. God help us, she thought. They actually did it. They actually came. In orbit, the Xeraxi watched. Overlord Jetcar stared from the command spire of his dread cruiser, the shroud of purity, his mandibles twitching in satisfaction. Primitive worlds like Earth were meant to scream, not fight. His fleet had deployed 15 annihilation beams across the surface in under 5 minutes. Resistance was negligible. Civilian transmissions screamed into the void, then fell silent. Yet something nagged at him. The humans were erratic, illogical, dangerous. They had spread across their solar system with astonishing speed, clawing their way to Mars, the asteroid belt, even Europa. No guidance, no great directive, just stubbornness. A Xeraxi tactician approached, his claws clicking nervously. "Overlord. Interference patterns increasing. Human ground forces are using non-standard frequencies. Encryptions we haven't broken. Insignificant." Jetcar hissed. "They will beg. They always beg." Back on Earth, Ruiz ducked beneath a collapsed freeway and entered an EDF black site carved into the rock below Lake Geneva. Inside, generators still hummed. Lights flickered. Tech groaned back to life as emergency protocols engage. Only one other figure stood there, Dr. Reggie Kwan, half covered in ash, blood, and oil. "You came," he said. "I didn't have a choice." "You do now," he replied, holding up a glowing wrist module. "RAIT's neural sync band. We always knew this day might come. We built it for you." Ruiz hesitated, then strapped it to her wrist. The metal hummed with energy. A voice, mechanical, calm, whispered into her ear. "Greater than Cortex sync established. RAITA operational. Welcome back, Commander Ruiz." Outside, the sky kept burning. But for the first time that day, Earth burned back. 12 days after the first strike, Earth was still bleeding. Cities lay in ruins. Satellites floated dead in low orbit. The moon colony had gone silent. Yet in a canyon near the outskirts of what used to be Denver, a new kind of war was beginning. One born of rage, dust, and desperation. Commander Elena Ruiz stood beside a rusted pickup truck, watching her people dig up an alien drop pod with their bare hands. Drones buzzed overhead. Makeshift spotters stood on rooftops with old hunting rifles and telescopes. They weren't soldiers. Not yet. Farmers. Mechanics. 2 ex-cons. Even a retired jazz musician who'd shot down a Xeraxi scout with a repurposed weather balloon and a home-built EMP coil. And they were winning skirmishes, small ones, but they added up. "We've hit 5 patrols this week," said Ruiz, nodding to an engineer as the pod was hoisted open. "You said you could get inside one of these. Prove it." Dr. Kwan was already halfway into the alien wreckage, muttering in Mandarin and grinning like a man on the edge of madness. Their neuro-relays run on biomapped current loops, he said, yanking out a translucent rod of pulsing blue matter. This is a spinal interface driver. With it, I can make their armor talk to us. Maybe even walk. Ruiz raised an eyebrow. How long? 2 days if you leave me alone. 5 if you hover like an angry crow. 2 it is, she said. Miles away, beneath the Appalachian Mountains, resistance groups were forming webs. Radio cells, drone relays, encrypted darknets. Humanity wasn't just fighting. It was learning. A young woman in Poland jury-rigged an old solar panel farm into a long-range jammer. In Brazil, a retired hacker named O Diabo cracked the Xeraxes language by mapping the sound frequencies to Gregorian chant structures. On Mars, miners were sealing off tunnels, preparing for something worse, just in case. The invaders had expected panic. What they got was a planet of engineers, soldiers, tinkerers, and madmen. Overlord Jetcar paced across the holodeck of the Shroud of Purity, mandibles clenching. The humans had not collapsed. Their resistance was growing and adapting. They are incorporating captured weapons, reported one of his aides. They do not understand our systems, yet they mimic them with terrifying speed. Zetkar clicked in frustration. They are vermin. Clever, dangerous vermin. But vermin still. He turned to the view screen. Earth spun slowly, defiant and wounded. Beneath the clouds, hundreds of flickering lights moved in strange formations. Patterns, ambushes, traps. Then a new signal cut across the Dominion's encrypted comms. A human transmission, broadcast on Xeraxi tactical frequencies. It was Ruiz's voice. Greater than you wanted to see what we were made of. You're about to choke on it. Somewhere in an abandoned bunker, a RAIT unit powered on. The suit's eyes glowed white-hot in the dark. And the war for Earth began to turn. Antarctica wasn't quiet anymore. What had once been a continent of silence and snow now thrummed with engines and whispers. Beneath the ice, under a mile-thick crust, lay a forgotten black site. Facility Helix 9, a relic from a war humanity had erased from its own history. Commander Elena Ruiz stood before a massive steel door half encased in permafrost. Her RAIT suit hissed as the environmental seals adjusted to the sub-zero pressure. Dr. Kwan knelt nearby, hatching a fusion tap into the door's deadlocked terminal. "You're sure this place was built by humans?" she asked. "Built for humans," Kwan replied. "By someone who knew exactly what was coming." Behind them, Marcus Juno adjusted the scope on his rail rifle. He'd only just arrived from the Martian colonies. Tall, lean, his voice gravel from low oxygen lungs. He hadn't spoken much, but he didn't need to. His kill record said enough. "Movement," Juno muttered, scanning the ice ridgeline. 6 o'clock. Not human. The Xeraxi had followed them. Before Ruiz could respond, the door behind them groaned, then opened. Warm air hissed out. Lights flickered to life in a smooth corridor far older than any modern design. Etched on the walls were glyphs, partly human, partly alien, entirely ancient. Kwan's jaw dropped. This place predates the 21st century, possibly predates our species. Ruiz didn't waste time. Inside. Now. They sealed the door just as plasma fire scorched the ice outside. The Xeraxi were relentless, but not reckless. They didn't charge blindly. They waited, watched, as if they feared what lay beneath the surface. Inside, the walls pulsed with faint blue light. The structure was partially organic, partially machined, built with materials neither man nor Xeraxi had used before. In the center chamber stood a stasis pod surrounded by 7 pylons. At its heart, an AI core, still flickering with latent energy. Juno ran a scan. Biosignature inside the pod. Not human. Not Xeraxi either. Kwan activated a console. This is Project J in US. My grandfather used to rant about it. said the government erased it from existence after World War II. The pod stirred. Energy crackled. Ruse raised her weapon. But the voice that followed was not hostile. It was mournful. Greater than designation. JNUS. Status. Reawakening. Species. Human. Time elapsed. 138 millennia since contact event. Ruse froze. What contact? Greater than the first invasion. You survived. Then forgot. The AI displayed a hologram. Earth, lush and green. Then fire, ships, ash. The same pattern. But older, humanity had fought once before, nearly lost, and buried every trace. Greater than cycle repeating. Termination probability, 89.3%. Unless adaptation threshold is met. Ruse stepped forward. What's the threshold? Greater than you must evolve, or become extinct. Outside, the Exaraxi charged. But now, humanity had a weapon buried not just in the ice, but in its blood, its memory, and its refusal to die quietly. The message from Earth hit the Dominion like a dagger through bone. Across hundreds of worlds, the same signal echoed on forbidden frequencies. Greater than we remember. Greater than we adapt. Greater than we are coming. Siraxi Overlord jet cars stared at the projection with a mix of fury and unease. Earth was not simply resisting, it was rallying. Worse, some of the lesser species under Dominion rule had begun to listen. His claws dug into the armrest of his throne spire aboard the Shroud of Purity. Below him, holographic charts showed flickers of resistance across colony worlds. Not just Earth. Mars. Titan. Even orbiting trade stations in neutral sectors. Rebels were emerging like embers on dry leaves. He turned to his High Inquisitor. Find the source. Silence it. Use fire if you must. The Inquisitor hesitated. It may be too late, Overlord. The fire is spreading faster than we can contain. Zetkar's silence was cold, measured. Then he snapped the Inquisitor's neck with a casual flick of his forelimb. Back on Earth, in a reclaimed Siraxi command node, in what had once been Nairobi, Ruse stood before a glowing star map. Pins of red indicated every Dominion world, now receiving the JNUS signal. The data from Antarctica had been decrypted by Quan and uplinked to every RAIT-enabled cell on the planet. 3 more species responded, Quan said. One even sent us an encrypted burst. Their words were, "The humans live. The prophecy breathes." "That prophecy can wait," Ruse replied, "until we break their teeth." Juno nodded, already prepping his squad for the next strike. His RAIT suit now had a cloak field and a zero-movement rig, built from a mix of Martian mining gear and scavenged alien tech. No one moved like he did now. "Target?" he asked. Ruse pointed to the map. There, a Xeraxi suborbital resupply node in Jakarta. Still active, high value, light defenses. "Trap?" he asked. "Definitely," she said. "That's why we're sending you." As Juno and his squad prepared for deployment, something unexpected happened. A transmission came through, not intercepted, but sent directly to them. It was from a Xeraxi. Not a command, not a threat. A voice, raspy, unsure. "Greater than I am Vrillik. Former xenobiology cast. I defect. Request parley." Ruse narrowed her eyes. "A defecting bug. What's his angle?" Quan responded. Maybe he saw the writing on the wall. Maybe he saw the JNUS feed. They granted the parley. Vrillik arrived days later, unarmed, shivering under UV dampeners. He spoke with effort, using a translator grafted to his thorax. "You are not what we were told," he said. "You were supposed to scream and burn. You fought. You learned. No species has ever done this. Not in the thousands of harvests." Ruse crossed her arms. "What do you mean, harvests?" Vrillik's mandibles quivered. Your planet was seeded, thousands of years ago, meant to be culled. But something went wrong. You survived. He looked up at her, not as an enemy, but as a witness. Greater than you are the mistake the Dominion cannot afford. In the silence that followed, Ruse finally smiled. Then let's make it permanent. The raid on Jakarta wasn't just a win. It was a message. Xeraxi patrols arrived too late to stop the explosion. One precisely timed to overload the Dominion's suborbital logistics relay. Half their Earth-side fleet went dark. The other half scattered in panic. When Jetkar reviewed the footage, all he saw was one blurry figure slipping through shadow. Marcus Juno, RAITH, armor barely visible in infrared. Juno had left behind a single calling card, broadcast in every Dominion dialect. Greater than, we took your eyes. Next, we take your heart. Across Earth, the resistance surge. RAIT units, now refined and modular, spread through cells like wildfire. Civilians trained in alleyways and hangars. New leaders rose from the chaos. Scavengers, smugglers, survivors. Humanity was no longer reacting. It was coordinating. Facility Helix 9 had become their strategic hub, its ancient systems now guiding Earth's defense and offense both. JNUS, the long silent AI, plotted weak points in Dominion command lines across the galaxy. It didn't just offer hope. It offered blueprints. What's the next target? Ruse asked. Quan tapped the holomap. The relay bastion in high orbit. They use it to coordinate fleet movement. Take it out, and they go blind. Can we? She asked. Quan smiled grimly. We don't have to take it. We just have to make it think we already did. 36 hours later, a stolen Dominion freighter limped toward the relay bastion under false ID. Its hold was packed with quantum mimicry devices programmed to replicate Dominion command signatures, complete with falsified emergency orders. Inside, a skeleton team of humans, led by former pilot Ray Vasquez, sat silent in RAITA suits modified for zero infiltration. As the freighter was towed into the bastion's hangar, the signal spike hit every Dominion ship within 4 systems. Greater than bastion overridden. Fleet control compromised. Retreat protocols engage. Confusion erupted. Dozens of ships blinked out in blind jumps. Others began fighting each other, thinking treachery had begun. Jet cars screamed for order. But Earth wasn't finished. On the surface, Ruse stood on the roof of a scorched hospital in Santiago, now converted into a comms tower. She watched with binoculars as the Dominion ship Dagger's flame fell from the sky in a controlled spiral. Its captain had defected, inspired by Verlex's broadcast, now circulating Dominion-wide. They're unraveling, Quan said beside her. We're not just hurting them. We're turning them against each other. Good, Ruse said. Let them rot from the inside. Far beyond Earth, deep in a Dominion archive world, an encrypted file activated, one planted by JNUS weeks prior. It opened an ancient record, the First Earth War. Hidden, buried, forbidden. The last line blinked in pale light. Greater than humanity cannot be enslaved. It must be erased. Zetkar watched the rebellion spread like wildfire. Even the sky above Earth no longer belonged to him. His claws tapped his throne armrest as he issued a final order. Deploy the Sun Killer. High in orbit, a spear of dark metal detached from the Dominion fleet and began its slow drift toward Earth's sun. Inside it pulsed an energy designed not to burn planets, but to kill stars. Ruse stood beneath the stars, her voice calm on the comms. Greater than, we see your weapon, and we're coming for it. The Sun Killer wasn't just a weapon. It was a warning. Overlord Jetkar had unleashed it as his empire spiraled into rebellion. A self-sustaining stellar siphon, it crawled toward Earth's sun with the silent inevitability of death. It had no crew, no conscience, only a directive. Greater than extinguish the light that defied us. In Helix 9, the ancient AI Genu was pulsed with rising urgency. Greater than weapon trajectory confirms solar impact in 41 hours. Irreversible cascade within 3. Star system detonation at 97% probability. Commander Elena Ruiz didn't blink. She was already moving. Launch the Vengeance. The Vengeance, a captured Dominion dreadnought refitted with Terran firepower and fused with RAIT control systems, rose from Earth's atmosphere like a myth reborn. A coalition crew filled its decks. Martian engineers, Jovian pilots, even Verlac, the Kazaraxi defector, now serving as science officer. Ruiz stood at the helm. "This is not a defense mission," she told the crew. "This is a reckoning." They intercepted the Sun Killer in the black void just beyond Mercury's orbit. It was massive, moon-sized, faceless, radiating death. As they approached, it activated countermeasures. Gravity distortions, fractal shields, quantum ghosts. JNUS fed targeting data directly into the crew's RAIT neural links. Ruse fired precision volleys through shield gaps that existed for nanoseconds. Juno and the infiltration team boarded the shell under heavy fire, cutting through enemy drones with chilling efficiency. Inside, Juno found the core, a sphere of pulsing dark matter surrounded by bones from dozens of fallen species. He planted the final explosive himself. Greater than tell the sun we said no. The explosion fractured the Sun Killer from within. As its tendrils began to implode, the Vengeance turned back toward Earth, only to be met by Jetkar's personal fleet. The final battle had come. In Earth orbit, chaos reigned. Dominion ships warped in. Defecting species warped out. But the Vengeance held the line. Quan rerouted fusion drives into weapons arrays. Verlek jammed fleet-wide command channels. Ruiz led a drop team in RAIT suits straight into Jetkar's flagship. They fought their way through crystal corridors, alien halls slick with blood and oil. Finally, in the throne spire, she faced the Overlord himself. Zetkar loomed tall, armored in obsidian plate, mandibles twitching with hatred. "You ruined everything," he hissed. Ruiz raised her rifle. "No," she said. "We reminded them what everything could be." They fought, steel versus claw, fire against fury, until Ruiz drove her combat blade into his thorax. Zetkar fell, choking on his final words. "Greater than you were never meant to survive." She stared down at his twitching body. "We didn't survive," she said. "We evolved." Weeks later, the war was over. The Dominion collapsed into civil war. Earth, scared but unbowed, became a symbol, a rallying cry across the stars. At the edge of what used to be Geneva, a child stood before a steel monument. The words etched deep into the base. Greater than they attacked Earth. Greater than they expected weakness. Greater than they found fire. Greater than they attacked Earth. Greater than they regretted it. The child looked up at the sky as stars blinked overhead. And somewhere out there, humanity prepared not just to survive again, but to lead.